let's talk about Baghead, which just recently dropped into cinemas here in the UK, and I want to chuck an honest review in its direction. Please share your thoughts on the film below also. So Baghead came onto my radar with its small time under a viral spotlight because a movie with a title like that would never go unnoticed in the UK. Naming your film after someone who loves smashing drugs was always going to get a chuckle, whether intentional or not. But if it was an accident, then that was a great bit of serendipity for the marketing campaign. I can't say I was too excited wandering into the film though, despite the inclusion of Peter Mullan, who is a sacrilegiously underappreciated actor. Check him out in Paddy Considine's film Tyrannosaur for an unforgettable experience, and I think one of Olivia Colman's best movies too. Plus, Baghead's behind-the-scenes team had some decent potential. Co-written by Bryce Maguire, who made Night Swim, which was okay in parts, Alberto Corredor, who directed the short film this was expanded from, and Roy Lee as an executive producer who also worked on It, Barbarian, Nimona, Cobweb, Watcher, The Departed, a pretty solid catalogue. So Baghead definitely had some great people involved, and you can tell just by watching the film that it does possess a lot of solid quality of filmmaking. But then comes the big problem that makes all of those production elements meaningless: the story. Before I get into that though, I will shine a little bit of positive light on the film. Ironic because the film is so dimly lit in a lot of places, where it was the annoying kind of darkness where you can't see a bloody thing. Great choice for dark wood for the pub setting we mostly see at night. Nice one. But that aside, I think the design of the pub was good, a couple dodgy bits of VFX here and there, but on the whole it was done pretty well. There were some really cool segments of interesting editing, and in terms of the cast, I think that everybody puts in a good shift. Have nothing bad to say about anybody's performance here, with the highest quality of effort put into the material they were provided. Yet there lies the issue: the material. The plot surrounds Iris, played by Freya Allan, who inherits a pub from her recently deceased father. She comes to learn via a stranger named Neil, played by Jeremy Irvine, that there's a woman living in the basement who can summon the dead. And right away you're possibly thinking, ooh, didn't realise Talk to Me had a new sequel. Summoning the dead for a temporary period where if you go over the time, bad things can happen. Sound familiar? Now, I can't begrudge Baghead too much for it closely following a lot of Talk to Me's elements, because I'm unaware of the difference in production time. However, it is just an obvious comparison to make, with one obvious winner, at least to me. The reason I think Talk to Me worked is because there was an added mystery to the summoning process. There's a little bit of hearsay about what the hand is, but we never truly discover its origins for certain, and when the dead are summoned, it's randomized, which keeps it interesting and unpredictable. Whereas in Baghead, we are given way too much exposition about exactly what Baghead is, exactly what she's capable of. We talk to many of her victims, we get visual flashback montage sequences. It just sucked a lot of the mystique out of the antagonist to me, despite admittedly having some rather sick ideas in there. Plus, the summoned deceased is almost always known in advance, with the exception of Neil summoning his mother by accident instead of his wife, which is his character arc. He wants to talk to his wife to gain closure on their relationship, with some twisted consequences that became an entirely different subplot of their own. So I thought Baghead's approach wasn't anywhere near as engaging or interesting as Talk to Me's approach, and to step into that side note about subplots, this was an issue to me. Too many of them. Iris and her dad's troubled relationship, her dad and her mother's relationship, Iris's friendship with Katie being tested, Neil's motives, the history of the pub, the identity of Baghead, the old victims of Baghead. It's got way too many ideas, often deflecting each other. Because there's some supernatural mystery stuff in there, but also some very real human problems that kind of dominated over the Baghead things. At many points, I actually forgot about Baghead. She becomes a lesser character in her own film because the story is dominated by relationship struggles. It came across like Baghead didn't really know what it wanted you to feel, especially when at many points I felt the pacing slip down to a sludgy dullness. That and plenty of telegraphed jump scares. Not a single proper scare in this film for me, which is always a problem. I've come to watch a horror movie, you know. There were plenty people sat around me in the screen screening who got hit by a couple moments, one particular big moment, so this film can be effective, just not to more seasoned genre fans. Oddly enough, the only things that really left an impression on me were a couple hiccups in the production, which I can't tell if they were intentional or not, but they left me scratching my head. At one point, Neil throws money down at Iris for Baghead's services, but I'm certain it was just a bunch of euro notes. Bit random to be just carrying around euros in your pocket when you're in England. Then we get a moment shown in the trailer of the film where Baghead vomits water all over Neil's face, for a decent amount of time I might add, yet seconds later, completely dry. Such a bizarre continuity error. When it comes to the actual core plot of Baghead and where it ends up, you're basically looking at Ex Machina with a horror movie skin, but the road there is paved with a bit too many thoughts. There's some very deep personal emotional content here that doesn't feel very deep or personal or emotional because they're stapled onto a canvas where part 2 Jason Voorhees does seances in a Wetherspoon cellar. Could this have worked? Potentially, but it needed to lean into either a deep, thought-provoking chiller horror that was character-driven, or a straight-up monster in the basement horror. As it stands, Baghead tries to be both, and subsequently fails at both. As previously alluded to, it's no fault of the actors. Allan, Irvine, and Mullan in particular all carry their parts with a good level of care and effort. Christopher Lee once said, "Every actor has to make terrible films from time to time, but the trick is never to be terrible in them." Now, I don't think Baghead is terrible. It's serviceable, but problematic and doesn't quite work. Yet this small cast is by all means the best thing going on here, with all things considered. Overall, Baghead is an inoffensive mess which had a lot of pedigree, but was more bark than bite. Some decent ideas, some bad ones. Overall, a run-of-the-mill 21st century cinema horror experience. Again. But that's just what I thought of it. Let me know your honest reviews below. I'm Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and cheers out.